Hi YouTube, I'm Anthony.
I'm Monica.
And we're the Cooks. Okay, so got my Muhammad Ali shirt on, favorite fighter, got my glove on, and today we're going to talk about how to fight with your spouse. How to fight with your spouse. Okay, so we have notes. We're going to talk about how to fight with your spouse because in a relationship, no matter what, fights, I'd like to use a better word than fights, but fights, disagreements, arguments are going to take place. We don't want you to think that we've never had a fight in our life and it's just been rosies and Cheerios and it's just been great. We've had some arguments, we've had some discussions, and we've had some downright fights. Not physical fights. She don't beat me. I know y'all think she does. She doesn't beat me. But we've had some fights. And so we're going to discuss how to fight with your spouse, and we're going to kind of liken it to boxing. Muhammad Ali. Okay, so number one thing, when two boxers come together and they're preparing for a fight and they step into the ring, one of the things about boxers is that they know that there are rules before they go into the fight. When you are with your spouse, there have to be rules before you go into the fight because you know that the fights are going to take place. And so one of the safeguards for boxers and one of the things that make them good at what they do is that they go in knowing all the rules. So if you and your spouse come to agreements as far as during a time when there's not a fight, when you come into agreement about the ground rules for fighting, once a fight does take place, you're ready. Boxers have a signed, sealed contract of things that they will do and things that they won't do before they step into the ring.
Can I say number one?
Yeah, because they can do it. Yeah.
Okay. Number one, no threatening of divorce.
No threatening of divorce. No threatening of divorce. Going into a marriage where in the middle of a fight, you're constantly throwing in, I'm going to divorce you, I'm going to leave you, I'm going to divorce you, I'm going to leave you. It opens up a horrible door, a door that can never be closed. We have never, ever thrown divorce up as an option. When we got married, we said that word is not an option. We're taking it off the table. We've seen too many unsuccessful marriages on my side, too many unsuccessful marriages on her side. And so we said, you know what? Divorce is not an option. And so one of the things that you need to do first and foremost is take divorce off the table. It's not an option. Don't discuss it. Don't say it. It's not a word to be used. See it as profanity.
Now, mind you, we're not talking about marriages that somebody's getting abused, kids are getting abused, so we don't want you to think we're saying stay there and get beat.
No. We're talking about couples who are married and they want to have a lasting, loving marriage.
We're talking about, I didn't get my way, so I want to make a divorce.
Yeah.
You're not doing this, so I want a divorce.
And so with boxers, one of their safeguards is when they walk into the ring, they already have a predetermined understanding of what is allowed and what isn't allowed. And so the time that they discuss that is before they put on their boxing trunks and step into the ring. And so during a time when you are happy, peaceful, content, not mad, not angry, set up some ground rules. And so here's some ground rules that we have that we like to give to you. And so like with boxers. Number one is boxers never get into the ring angry. A true boxer, a true fighter, is never angry when they step into the ring. Muhammad Ali says that he's never fought anybody he was mad at. Never. Because boxers understand that when you get into the middle of a fight and you're fighting, if you're angry, you can't pay attention to what the person is doing and you can't pay attention to what you're doing. If you're in the middle of a fight and you're throwing your hands all over the place, then with a relationship, if you're into a fight and you're saying and doing and saying all kinds of crazy things, you're not in control of yourself and you're not in control of the situation. And somebody's definitely going to get hurt. Next thing is with boxers. When boxers step into the ring, they have a referee. A referee is somebody who is a mediator between the two people. Somebody who is neutral. A referee does not care about which boxer wins. He doesn't have anybody's interest in heart other than the safety and the health of the actual situation. And so when you start talking about somebody who's going to be the mediator, the referee, that official, the person who officiates a situation that you have, let it be somebody who doesn't have any vested interest in you or your spouse. It has. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
9 times out of 10, it's not going to be a family member.
Not going to be a family member. Not going to be a family member.
You can find some family members that know how to
be impartial.
Be impartial.
Very few.
But family members, yeah.
That's kind of hard.
It's kind of hard.
So the suggestion is find a friend who has a good marriage and who wants to see your marriage thrive and succeed, because we all know misery loves company. And so don't find somebody who already have a bad marriage and have them to find somebody who has a good marriage, their marriage that you see and you like their marriage and you know that they have the best interest of your marriage in mind, and have them be the person who's your mediator.
And remember, somebody that loves you and wants to see your marriage thrive is going to tell you the truth.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
There have been a lot of women that have called Monica and said, well, he's doing this and he's doing that and he's doing this and he's doing that. And Monica's quick to say, well, what are you doing? And so, yeah. So all of our friends know, if you call us for advice or to mediate your situation, we're going to be wholeheartedly honest with you. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right.
And if that song Michael Jackson did, Man in the Mirror, I don't even know if he knew what he was singing, but I'm going to tell you, one of the hardest things in a marriage is to look at the person in the mirror and say, you know what, this was my fault. I need to apologize.
And you know what? With boxers do that. Boxer will shadow box. A boxer will stand there and a boxer will look into a mirror, or they'll look at their own shadow, and they will match themselves up against their own shadow, because taking a look at themselves lets them see what their flaws are versus them always looking at their opponent. And so a mediator, a referee, somebody who's impartial, and take a look at the man in the mirror. Do a lot of shadow boxing. Do a lot of self-evaluation, self-checks on yourself to be able to see, hey, you know what? Am I throwing the uppercut right? Is my jab right? Or is it all me and not them? Next thing is that when the bell rings at the end of a round, boxers go to their neutral corners. I'm saying this to I know as a man, a lot of times, because fellas, here's a secret. Women are much better at arguing and fighting than we are. Studies have shown that their brains work a whole lot faster than ours do. So you'll get into an argument with your wife, and when you get into that argument, and it's a battle of words, she's gonna come and you're like, and so we fizzle because we need some time to reassess. And so that, ladies, when your man is arguing with you and he's like, I'm leaving, I'm going for a walk. He's not just going for a walk. He's trying to regroup, because his mind isn't. Our eyes work faster than yours, but our minds, they don't work as fast as yours. And so, in an argument, in a fight, in a dispute, something like that, you're always, the women are most of the time on the upper hand. I say that to say that when boxers go to their separate corners, they go to their separate corners. When they go to those neutral corners, they go to those neutral corners, and they have that peace in that corner. Ladies, if your husband is like, you know what, I need to separate from this situation and I need some time to regroup, and he needs to go to his neutral corner, or you need to go to your neutral corner, go to those corners and be respectful of that corner. Don't get in front of him and be like, you ain't going nowhere, you're going to stay here and we're going to finish this, because it's not going to make the situation any better. With boxers, when they hear that bell ring, they go to their corner. When they go to their corner, they get their water, they catch their breath, they reevaluate what they've said, what they've done. You can reevaluate what your performance has been like. They have people who come to them and say, hey, you need to watch out for this and watch out for that, and, throw more uppercuts, throw more jabs. You need to get in there. You need to get in there. And so now when they're able to come back, they're much more refreshed, so to speak, but they're ready to be able to deal with the situation much better. And so if you need to say, hey, you know what, and when we talked about having the ground rules set, if you get to the point to whereas you're having a fight or argument, and you realize that you are to that point to whereas you're angry and it could turn physical or it could turn violent, you need to let that bell ring, go to your separate corners, and spend some time alone reevaluating. Because, go ahead, baby.
And you're not just sitting there. God is your referee.
Uh-huh.
God is the one that's going to speak to you and tell you how to handle the situation.
And so when you're in that neutral corner, take a look at it and say, what is God trying to say to me? What is God trying to teach me? What am I supposed to be learning out of this? What am I doing wrong? Because when the boxer goes into that corner, he's not going, hey, what is that guy doing to beat me down? He's saying, what am I doing wrong that I'm losing this fight, or that I'm not being the best that I can be? And so the other thing is, and it goes back into, when the bell rings, they go to their corners. If one goes to his corner and the other guy is so angry that he's constantly going at him, then the official will step in there and say, no, 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 and send them to their corners. So you got to know when it's time to sit back, go to your corners. The other thing is that hitting below the belt. This is one of the things that you need to write down, annotate, make notes of, and come to an understanding of before the fight takes place. Here's one of the things about hitting below the belt. In the boxing world, they know you are not supposed to hit me below the belt. No dirty shots, no low shots. I'm going to tell you a dirty shot. Calling somebody out of their name. Dirty. Bringing up the past. Bringing up somebody's past. Dirty. That's hitting below the belt. Make an understanding that when you have that fight, that argument, that situation, you're not going to cuss me out. You're not going to use language. You're not going to call me out of my name. You're not going to bring up stuff that we brought in the past. When two boxers get together and they're fighting, they don't sit there in the middle of the fight and be like, well, last year when we fought against each other, you did this. So don't bring up the past. That's called hitting below the belt. Believe me, if you don't get anything out of this YouTube video, get the understanding of when you have a fight, if you have the rule that we're not going to cuss each other out, you're not going to call me out of my name, we're not going to bring up the past, a fight can last 3 minutes like a boxer's. But when you start cussing somebody out and calling them out of their name, and you bring up past fights, you have just opened up a world of hate and hurt that is going to last well after that 12th round, or well after that bell rings.
And I've done things in our marriage that has hurt him, and if he constantly is bringing those things up, that means he hasn't forgiven me. He's still holding on to it, because forgiveness does not keep throwing things up in your face that you're sorry for, you didn't mean to do. If your spouse says they forgive you, then they can't keep bringing it up. God says that when you come and you ask Jesus into your heart, he throws your sins away into a sea of forgetfulness. That's the same thing he expects of us. And I know we're human, we're in a body of flesh, but I'm telling you, it's possible.
And so just realize that if you set the ground rules beforehand, no hitting below the belt, it will make, because fights are going to happen, arguments are going to happen, disagreements are going to happen, but if you make that rule from the very beginning, it will make it so that they are a whole lot shorter and a whole lot infrequent. Believe me, try it out.
And I'm going to tell you one of the biggest things, learning to just say, I'm sorry. That was really hard for me in the beginning of our marriage. I think I had a little chip on my shoulder. And being raised by a dominant mom didn't help. But learning to just say, I'm sorry. Just saying, I'm sorry. So many things can be avoided if we can just say, I'm sorry, and the other person be receptive and know that you mean it when you say, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, I didn't mean to do this, I didn't mean to say that. And that's one of the things about hidden below the belt is that when you do that, you keep opening up a wound and putting salt in it. And it just keeps hurting and it never heals.
And with boxers, once the fight is over, the fight is over. When the fight is over and all is said and done, they don't walk out of the ring, get into their limousines, and then go someplace and say, oh, well, let's fight again. No. Once the fight is over, it's over. Like Monica said, if your mate apologizes to you and you say, I forgive you, that's it. It's over. It's done with. It's cast into the sea of forgiveness. However you want to say it, it's over and you can never bring it back up. But
now, certain situations, does that mean that if I hurt him, can I expect for him to say he forgives me and still not hurt? No. That takes time. And everybody has to understand that when you've been hurt, it takes time. It takes time to heal. And you have to agree to do things that will help that healing along.
And so, in this session, in this YouTube video, I'm talking about how to fight with your spouse, how to fight with your mate. Never fight when you're angry. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, kind of contradictory. But when I say angry, I mean to the point to whereas it could turn physical, it could turn violent, and you're going to be saying a lot of things that you shouldn't say. If at all possible, try to bring it down, go to your corners, calm down, and try to have a rational discussion. Also, set in motion before the fight ever happens, ground rules. Ground rules being, don't hit below the belt, don't cuss me out, don't call me out of my name, and don't bring up the past. Also realize when it's over, it's over. Realize that if somebody needs to go to their neutral corner and they need to sit back and regroup, give them the opportunity to be able to do that. Realize that when you're angry and you're out of control and you don't have any balance and you don't have ground rules and you don't know what you're going to say, what you're going to do, when those times that are unavoidable and inevitable take place, you're going into it as a wild person.
And I'm going to share something with them.
Okay.
I used to call him a name that he did not like. Want to share?
Yeah.
I used to call him a punk. And it was my way of, I don't know, now that I look back, it was my way of just being dominant and trying to belittle him and stuff. And I used to call him that. And he used to say, Monica, don't call me that. And I would do it again. Something would come up. We would have a disagreement and I'd do it again. And then one day he looked at me and he called me a female dog. He said the word. And he looked at me and he said, how did that make you feel? And I'm telling you guys, I did not like the way that made me feel. And he told me, he said, that's how you make me feel every time you call me that. Now, at that point, I had a choice. I could have either retaliated and just went crazy. But you know what I did? I was like, wow, okay, I understand. Never did it again. And some people would be like, oh, no, he didn't. No, I didn't take it like that because he was trying to tell me this is how you make me feel. So, I'm not saying to do that, but you have to take each other's feelings into consideration. Everybody doesn't receive things the same way.
When you're younger and you get into fights, when boxers are younger, before they get trained to become professionals, when they get into fights, they flail all over the place. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. They throw all kinds of blows, and they never really get their point across. You never really win a street fight like that. But when boxers go through training, like what you're going through by watching this YouTube video, and you get experience and knowledge, and you understand how to set up ground rules, and then you go into it as a professional fighter. What ends up happening is that you go in, and to them it becomes not about emotions, not about feelings. It becomes about getting their point across. I am the best, like Muhammad Ali, the best who ever did it. And once they get that point across, and they've had 10 fights or 50 fights, Pacquiao, Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, they get to the point to whereas they don't have to prove anything to anybody. And they've had so many fights that they look back at it and it means nothing to them. If you listen to what we're trying to teach you and accept the blessing that we're trying to share to you by giving you what God has given to us, what will end up happening is that not only will your fights become less intense, they'll become few and far between. And when you do have them, they'll actually end up being kind of funny, because the last fight that we had, the last fight that we had was freaking hilarious. It was hilarious. And so our kids...
And we're going to tell you about that in the next one. I'm going to make sure we tell you about it.
And our kids walk around, they look at us and they're like, oh, look at mom and dad having another one of their pretend fights. Look at them having another one of their pretend fights. I'm like, shut up, you don't understand, I'm mad. Yeah, whatever, you're having another one of your pretend fights. But in their minds, because they don't see me cussing my wife out, they don't see her calling me out of my name, they don't see us loud and throwing things and getting belligerent and talking about divorce and walking out of the house and slamming doors and all that kind of stuff. To them, they're not fights, they're pretend fights. And so, yeah. And so thank you guys for spending this time with us. I know that this video was long. We really appreciate if you would share this video with someone else and teach other people how to fight with their spouse. And also subscribe to us. Tell people about us, and please comment, because we really appreciate your comments, because if you ask us, we will tell you. So, yeah. Anything else?
1 + 1 makes?
1 + 1 equals.
Oh, yeah.
1 + 1 is 1. Bye, YouTube.